DBT, Distress Tolerance 7. Today we're going to focus on the last distress tolerance skill, allowing the mind. Allowing the mind means letting thoughts come and go, noticing as they come and go, but not judging them or trying to change or control them. It might be useful to think of thoughts that arise in your mind just like trains that come and go at a busy station. You are simply standing on a platform watching the trains go by. For each thought, imagine it on the side of the train and watch it come into the station. When the train or thought arrives, sometimes it just passes by, and sometimes it stops for a little while. When the train or thought hangs out at the station for a while or remains in our mind, we can start to feel different emotions. It's okay to feel things. This is a good time to breathe in deeply and breathe out. Focus on the breath and not the train, because soon it's going to pass by. Watch as the train leaves. In that time, just like the train, our thoughts move on and we stay behind. We don't have to react to every thought. We can simply observe them. In doing this, the goal is not to change our thoughts, but rather to change our relationship with them. In order to allow the mind, we must be mindful of current thoughts. This means observing our thoughts as just thoughts, rather than facts about ourselves, others, and the world. We need to observe our thoughts as if they were any other behaviour or situation. We must observe not only thoughts, but assumptions, judgments, interpretations, and beliefs. Radical acceptance also comes into this. We must radically accept thoughts for what they are, sensations of the brain that come and go. Thoughts are simply things that come into our minds, but when they're negative or worry-type thoughts, we either react to them straight away with behaviours, or hold on to them and don't let go. This is because we're predisposed to be vigilant to any kind of threat. In a way, our brains are hardwired to be sensitive to negative thoughts. However, this is not always helpful. We need to learn to not take our thoughts and emotions literally, as fact. For example, feeling afraid doesn't necessarily mean that something is threatening or dangerous to us. Our fear might come from some past experience, or from something that has some connection to the current situation, or from confusion about the event that triggers our fears. Allowing thoughts allows us to change our relationships to them, rather than changing the thoughts themselves. Thoughts are firings of the brain, they're not necessarily truth. Painful or distressing thoughts go through everyone's mind at some point. This is a way of building a relationship with these thoughts, without causing suffering. The goal is not to have a mind empty of thoughts. This would be impossible. When practicing mindfulness, everyone has distracting thoughts. It doesn't mean that we're trying to suppress them, as this will only make them stronger. The aim of mindfulness is to simply notice thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions without becoming attached to them or trying to push them away. So why do we want to observe our thoughts? Research shows that trying to block or suppress thoughts actually makes them worse. Think of thoughts and emotions like a small child seeking attention. If you don't acknowledge them, they'll get louder and louder and eventually probably end up in tantrum. Or think of a fire. It starts off very small with a small flame. If you ignore it, the flame will develop into a very big fire and eventually burn everything. If you observed it was happening, you'd be able to put it out before it developed into a big fire. We often react to thoughts instead of the facts they're meant to represent. It's always a good idea to check the facts. Thoughts are very clever at eliciting negative emotions. In CBT, we look at the thoughts with a view to changing them if they're inaccurate. However, in mindfulness, we merely observe them, without arguing or challenging. Observing your thoughts enables you to separate yourself from them, to give you space to work out what's a fact and what's a thought, and what your emotional reaction to it is. A thought is not a fact. A thought is a thought. It's important to remember that you are not your thoughts. Thinking, I am a failure, doesn't mean that you are a failure, however much you may believe it. Becoming your thoughts influences how you feel and behave. So in this example, depressed and given up trying. Reframing our thoughts can help to draw awareness to seeing them as just thoughts. So rather than saying, my partner's angry at me, or I'm never going to be ready for this presentation, encourage yourself to practice saying, even to yourself, I'm having the thought that my partner is angry at me, or I'm having the thought that I will never be ready for this presentation. This slight change in construction can help increase awareness that thoughts are just thoughts, rather than statements of things as they are, which is often how we experience them. Observing our thoughts can help us see that a situation isn't as catastrophic as we first might think. Keeping your attention on the thought can help you become less reactive to it. Just sit with it and see what happens. Even if the situation is catastrophic, your thoughts aren't. Observing thoughts can lead to freedom. It will take practice, but you'll start to feel more free and less controlled by your thoughts. People believe that they can't bear to have painful thoughts, that it will encompass them and that they won't be able to survive it. Therefore, they control them, avoid them, or suppress them. Allow your thoughts to come and go without fighting them. So how can we be mindful of our current thoughts? The first step is to observe your thoughts. Notice your thoughts, beliefs, judgments, interpretations, and labels. Acknowledge their presence. Then step back. Imagine you're on the top of a mountain looking down on your thoughts below. The second step is to be curious about your thoughts. Observe them coming and going. Ask, where do they come from? Where do they go? Notice that thoughts come, but they also leave your mind. Let go of any judgments. Don't evaluate your thought as good or bad, should or shouldn't. Investigate with kindness. This means calling on our natural curiosity, the desire to know truth, and directing a more focused attention to our present experience. For example, imagine while walking in the woods you see a small dog sitting by a tree. You bend down to pet it, and suddenly it lunges at you, teeth bared. Initially, you might be frightened and angry, but then you notice one of its legs is caught in a trap, buried under some leaves. Immediately, your mood shifts from anger to concern. You see that the dog's aggression sprang from vulnerability and pain, and this applies to all of us. When we behave in hurtful, reactive ways, it's because we're caught in some kind of painful trap. The more we investigate the source of our suffering, the more we cultivate a compassionate heart towards ourselves and others. The next step is to remember that you are not your thoughts. Don't act straight away. You have thousands of thoughts every day and throughout your life. Each come and then go. They do not define you. The final step is to try not to block or suppress your thoughts. Open yourself to the flow of them. Don't push them away, judge them, or reject them. Be willing to have your thoughts. Trying to build a wall to protect you from them often leads to them coming back. This is different from the pushing away skill in accepts, which is a distress tolerance strategy in a crisis to be used as a temporary method to survive. This skill can also relate to emotions, using mindfulness as a way of riding the wave of negative emotions, watching them come and go, allowing yourself to experience them without trying to suppress or block them. It will take a lot of practice, but it can lead to a lot of freedom.